Hey there, remember me? We're on a screenwriter's journey. My name's Jack. Your name is user64. I don't know where I came up with that. We're on day 47 of the journey. And what we're in right now at the top of 104 is what they call what do they call it? The aftermath, the follow up, it's not really the finale, or is it the finale? I'd have to think about that. So all the action's taking place. It's like living happily ever after. Uh, some French word is coming to mind. Denouement. Probably embarrassed myself. Anyways, it's basically the wrap up, the maybe kind of like I said, the aftermath. Um, so you just don't boom and the movie's over, and you want to maybe pay off a few things. I mentioned those book and thoughts yesterday, and I realized um, a short time ago that I have a major one that I need to fix, but that's a whole nother story. Well, it's part of this story, but I'm not going to talk about it today. So I'm just tweaking this dialogue because I've only in the scene itself. I've only been through this scene once or twice, maybe, which for me is not much. So um, I think I may have mentioned a lot of people, when they say first draft, I can't imagine, well, there probably are people who literally write a first draft straight through and they go, oh, there's my first draft. And then they send it out to get some feedback. And maybe I did that in my younger years, but gosh, they would have been totally horrible. Because what I call a first draft is when I'm happy enough with it to send it out. And as you've seen, if you're a regular, that I've been through this thing many, many times, and this is what I call my first draft when I get it to a spot where I'm ready to let other people look at it. So in reality, strictly speaking, it might be a third, fourth, fifth, sixth draft. It might be a 10th draft. But what does that really mean? It doesn't mean anything. Just like a rough draft or, a rough cut of a movie, what does that really mean? Different things to different people. Leave your comments and tell me how you like to phrase your rough drafts or first drafts and what you consider them to be. Then subscribe and share and like and do all that other stuff. So yeah, Lexi's saying, what if I don't need protection, but I could still use an ant? And this is really the first time that Holly, well, it's not the first time, but her emotions are sort of getting the best of her. The theme that I mentioned, I don't know when, that she didn't really make a choice between, her job and duty and I guess it's the head or the heart, and her name is Agent Hart or Holly Hart, but that I don't think that really plays into it. And for some reason, I thought that she might think that if I, expose my emotions, my underbelly, so to speak, that won't make me as tough of a person. That will make me less of a person. That won't make me as good of a U.S. Marshal. And so over the course of this, she's realized that that's not true and that she really does care for Lexi. And certainly it was duty sort of that brought her back, but it really was her love and, an aunt sort of way, maybe even a motherly sort of way. Auntierly really isn't a word, I don't think. So the question always is for me, and I think other writers, how much to write after kind of the story is over. Because really the story is over when Rachel gets busted and she's had her comeuppance, as they say. And as you know, if you have been following along, in the early days, the movie ended completely differently with Holly and, although I don't know if I ever completely wrote that ending or not. Holly and Lexi basically were going to go back on the run, and Holly was going to go with her. None of the others were. But now that I think about that, I don't know that I ever completely wrote that scene where they like literally fly off into the sunset, because I was coming up with some logistic problems, like would there be a plane there to take them? If they stayed, a day or two, how would that work? How would that play out in the movie and in real life? So I don't know that I ever actually faded out on that, as they say. But the point is that in this one, I think they got to the Axe Factory at page 104 at the top. So now this is 2.5 pages, so roughly 2.5 minutes, which is probably reasonable if we can not iron some things out, but if we can close out the stories, make everybody happy, wrap up any loose ends without going overboard, which is something that I think sometimes I have a problem with, that, I got to explain what happened on this scene. And on page 48, I said this, and I don't know if that's paid off yet. And what if the audience was wondering about this and that? Like, for instance, where Lexi's going to live until she goes to college and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I think about. And when I write my outlines, which I sometimes do, sometimes not completely, and it says like finale, and I generally think I know how it's going to end story-wise, but the dialogue to get there, I never really give it a lot of thought till I'm writing it. One reason, if not the main reason, is that I know from experience that once, again, the characters come alive and you write dialogue for them and all that kind of stuff, what they're going to say and how they're going to react is almost assuredly going to be different than you thought might be the case when you were doing the outline and the treatment and all that. Oh, treatments. I hate treatments. And synopses and log lines. Don't get me started. So I'm kind of fooling around here. Maybe experimenting is a better word, with how deep to go in and what areas, again, the audience may be thinking about. Like Abby says, you got college in a few weeks, but you'll need a place to stay. And then Lexi jokingly says, you mean I can't stay with you? Although now she changes her line, or I changed her line. She didn't write that, I did. And then Gary is like saying, oh, well, you could stay at our place. But then I think as I was writing this and experimenting, I realized, does the audience really care? Unless, if this was going to have a sequel, or this was an episode and we were going to continue on. But that's crap. That dialogue right there is, your work here is officially done. I think I may get rid of this, and I may cut out this whole idea of wondering where she's going to live. Because do you care about that? I mean, you just saw that, you saw what happened. You saw that Salerno flew off, ostensibly, not going to bother pursue her, because even though she is his granddaughter, he believes, he's convinced himself, because of what she said, that this is best for him. So if in fact you're not worried, the audience isn't worried, Lexi's not worried, her friends aren't worried, then can we just end the story there? What to you is a loose end that needs to be wrapped up? Maybe that's a question. Leave a comment. And then watch The Key on Amazon Prime and The End of Art on YouTube, both for free. What? Lexi jumps on... Oh, that's because Lexi... Yeah, Gary and Larry are sort of good-naturedly fighting. So, yeah, my thought was that the kids get back to their lives. Holly, gives them kind of that bittersweet, as I wrote, smile, and then she leaves, leaving the kids, they're getting on with their lives, and now she's going to go get on with hers. So we're outside, and Hogan jokingly, no goodbye kiss, not on the first date. So I thought this was kind of fun. If you consider that a date, I have a theory about why you're still single. So what do you think? Has enough gone on between them that realistically they could sort of be talking about an informal date, second date? I don't know. I think so, especially in the movies. Well, I pretty much look like I'm done with that. I won't call it the draft, but I've gotten to fade out again, I think. On day 47, so maybe I've gone through the whole script 3 times, 4 times. You probably know better than I, because I'm sure you're taking notes. As I said, what I picture this, being most useful for are either brand new writers, relatively novice writers, maybe writers have been at it for 6 months or a year or 2, and are just looking to see how other people do it, or just get a feel of, oh my gosh, what all is involved in screenwriting. Or again, people who have never written, never intend to write, but just want to go through the painful. You can feel my pain, and I can feel your pain watching this. When I started, my goal was to obviously write a good script and get it seen by someone and get it made and, live the dream. But I wanted to make this script relatively simple. I wanted to try to write it as fast as I could. And I think I've mentioned that, I've heard of and read scripts that have been written supposedly in a week or 10 days or 14 days, or, they say, who is it? Someone famously wrote Rocky. Was it? Well, I know Stallone wrote it, but did he write it in 3 days supposedly? I'm not going to say it's impossible, because he'll probably come over and clobber me, but I've never been able to write fast. Well, good and fast. 2 different things, I guess. I can crank out pages, but it takes me, and I don't know why it is, just because that's the way I write, that I go back and back and back. Maybe because I don't outline well enough and all that kind of stuff. But I keep trying, and I keep not really succeeding. Getting back to my point, I'm on day 47, and if you would have asked me where you would be on day 47, Jack, when you began this, I would have hoped that I would have had a really, really close to a draft that I'd be happy with to send out. But guess what? It's going to be a few more days. And when I say a few, I'm not going to say how many more than a few. But I'm not going to give up until I decide to, because that's what it's like going on a screenwriter's journey. See you tomorrow.